What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pure Evil MMA podcast after a crazy week of UFC fights that we had for UFC 277. Amanda Nunes going in there, taking out Juliana Pena, and it was kind of a really weird event because when Amanda got beat, if you guys remember, she was being called the GOAT. Now, I want to get into all of that discussion, what a GOAT is or should be, and if we're viewing it for just the time right now and the excitement or long term. I mean, if you're calling somebody the greatest of all time, you better have, watched a lot of fights there. So did Amanda CM Punk Pena? That's another thing that we're going to get to as well. Maybe she dragged her out into the 5th round. She could have finished her in the first couple of rounds, if you ask me. And then, of course, Valentina Shevchenko sending her that tweet, and we are going to be talking about Marino versus Figgy, Lewis, and where he's at. Should he retire? Retiring in the top 5. That's another subject that we're going to be getting into. We got True or False and UFC PICKEM coming at you as well. And Justin Gaethje's nose job. Is he going to be the same fighter that we're used to seeing years ago? I mean, if anything, he should have broke his forehead, not his nose, but we're going to get into all that. We got top 5 UFC Pick'em leaders. We got True or False coming at you. This is the start of season 2 of Pure Evil MMA, episode number 435. And I just can't wait to talk about retiring in the top 5. I mean, man, that's like, you're in the All-Stars. You're fighting in an All-Star game every time that you get in there. So we got a lot to discuss. Make sure to follow me because I did change my Twitter. Instead of @evil_echo, it's now going to be @XEvilEddieX. So I got to change that down there in the corner. For you guys listening to on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, Megaphone, wherever, thank you so much, because in the last week, the last month, the last couple of months, we've been hitting top 10 here in America for sports news, even if it was just for an hour over in Portuguese. I guess we got a lot of people over in Portugal listening to the Pure Evil MMA podcast. I appreciate that so much. And remember, guys, we're also on YouTube, trying to grow the YouTube channel back up to where it once was. We're trying to hit 4K by the end of the year. And if we do, I'll get 4 X's tattooed on the back of my neck. And if you know who I'm referring to, then you're part of this family. And guys, this is going to be kind of a really serious podcast. And I hope you're ready for it, because I got a lot of fun things also set up for all of you. And let's jump right into our top 3 moments from UFC 277. Here we go. All right, so let's take a look at this card. For a UFC pay-per-view, having to pay about $90. That's a lot of money to ask for when your card's really not that stacked. People really don't know that many fighters on the card. But then again, this rivalry was insane, man, because it was basically like, Pena went in there and literally made a leather goat belt out of Amanda. She did not look amazing at all in that fight. I don't know what was going on with Amanda. I mean, she even at one point head kicked Holly home. Those are the kind of things that you want to see when it comes to talking about greatest of all time. Now, we're going to get into it in a minute, but Dana White is considering Kamaru Usman as the greatest of all time. I'm a little confused about that. I really am. We really got to discuss what's next for Amanda Nunes. She's the only person at 145, which my boy Kaposa just tweeted out. So that was really hilarious because, guys, there's Valentina Shevchenko, but she lost twice. You can talk about that first fight that she had. But man, Amanda Nunes got to be considered one of the best. For Ronda Rousey to return and fight Amanda, I thought she should have came back, fought Holly. That's how you get back into it. That's how you stay on top as the greatest of all time. Unfortunately, she ended up crumbling. Ronda Rousey. And Amanda stepped right in because for a very long time, the GOAT talk was all about Ronda Rousey. And if you weren't there for that era, you missed out on some real true excitement. Even when they opened up the division, people were kind of pissed that they handed her the belt. They did the Ultimate Fighter season. Then Kat Zingano got injured. That was supposed to be the big thing. And Miesha Tate became her enemy. Now, I like telling stories when it comes to mixed martial arts. It's not just about the fight, right? It's about the stories. And we saw that, and I don't mean to jump ahead at all, but we saw that with Figgy and Marino. It was almost like a Brock Lesnar moment when you saw Figgy ringside looking like a straight up gangster. And I really thought when they brought him into the octagon, because remember, they don't do that ever. When they brought him in the octagon, it was supposed to set up some excitement. But what did we see? We saw Figgy finally realize that he had something that Mighty Mouse never had. And that was somebody that pushes you to be your very best. And that person is Marino. So I feel like when he got in the octagon, he could have done the WWE Brock Lesnar thing. But I kind of do cheers him for realizing how important it is to build a story for Marino to win. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see Marino's face right there. It's so important. That fight right there, if Marino lost, it crumbles everything. We've seen it happen many times before in the past. We've seen tons of guys make it right there to the tippity top and then crumble. Derek Lewis being another example of that. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But honestly, guys, 50-43. Last time that happened was GSP versus Fitch and Habib versus Ali Quinta. There's only 3 times that's ever happened. Ever. That's really embarrassing. So to come back and beat the girl that made you basically put a towel over your head and embarrassed you, because that was not Amanda Nunes that fought Juliana. Juliana, and we kind of saw it with Marino too as well in the last fight that he had with Figgy. He wasn't there. The best example of this is like the eye of the tiger is when Conor McGregor versus Chad Mendes. Another good example of the eye of the tiger. Cody No Love going there against Dominic Cruz in a long history that they had. You know, Faber and Cruz, the trilogy. That was the eye of the tiger that night with Cody No Love versus Dominic Cruz. He was in there dancing. He was in the zone, feeling himself. And then what happened? He crumbled. That's going to be another discussion that we're having a little later today on the podcast, talking about longevity versus, you know, trying to jump your way through up to the top. Look at Tai Tuivasa. He knocks out Derek Lewis. Now from here on out, he has to stay in that top 5, you know, rankings. Once you go lower than that, people are going to start looking at you like, man, you need to retire. And I'm not for that. I'm really not. How many times have we seen fighters retire at the top? Rumble Johnson, man, beat everybody. The dude could do anything. But he just couldn't get past DC, and he retired at the top. And still we get hints here and there that he might come back, this and that. Even Miesha Tate, another great example of somebody that made it to the top and ended up quitting. Now she's back, obviously. But I'm so happy for Amanda to be able to come back, not only have the judges embarrass her, but also have the entire crowd look at this like, there's no way Amanda Nunes can be beaten. I mean, the second that she knocked out Chris Cyborg, that was a moment. That was such a statement to have made. We all wanted that fight for so long. And we also wanted Ronda Rousey versus Cyborg for so long. And it always makes you wonder what would have happened. Or Gina Carano Cyborg in that fight. 1 second left, not even. What would have happened in the second round? She probably would have got finished, but you know, you see somebody at the top and they just get crushed. Amanda Nunes became the lioness. She really did. And a lot of people were making fun of her because they said, you know, there's only one lioness in the jungle, and people were like, oh, lions aren't from the jungle. Well, I kind of looked it up and I have it somewhere over here. They're from like the Sahara, Africa. Where did I write this down? The reason for the name King of the Jungle is because it is feared. The only thing that scares a lion or a tiger are hyenas. So this was kind of perfect because Juliana was running her mouth. She was feeling it. And I remember years ago, before she came back, got the belt, she wanted Ronda Rousey so bad. So bad, man. Fortunately, that didn't happen. She goes in there and beats Amanda Nunes. We thought we had someone new. This was a Holly Holm moment. This was a Holly Holm moment, man. And Amanda Nunes, to call somebody GOAT, you have to be doing stuff like this. Go in there and get a 50-43 decision, or you go in there against Holly Holm and kick her in the head like she knocked out Ronda Rousey, or you go in there and you knock out Chris Cyborg. That's what it means to be the greatest of all time, in my book. And you really have to look at how MMA has evolved over the years as well. So right here, we see Dana White saying, I would consider John Jones the GOAT. But now I'm considering Usman. So here, John Jones, and I believe I have it pinned up for you somewhere here. Maybe we don't. There is an image that keeps popping up about Amanda Nunes and how high up she is when it comes to what did it say, title defenders. Either way, all the points that I have just made to all of you are what I consider greatest of all time. Kamaru Usman is not there. Anderson Silva, he was one of those guys. And you guys can shit on Conor McGregor all you want. And this goes into the longevity talk. So let's get into a little longevity, because this is a real serious talk. Here we go. All right, so it looks like we got Ann in the chat. Let's see what Auntie Ann says. Hello, Eddie. Nunes, top WMMA fighter. The Knitter, who cares? It's her nickname. The Lioness Nunes. The Knitter. No wonder Pena was the underdog by so much. Yeah, that was such a gimme, right? If you were going to bet on this fight, I did not think that Nunes was going to come back the way she looked in that last fight. It almost felt like Nunes was overlooking her, and we've seen that before in the past. GSP versus Matt Serra. And by the way, keep that name in mind once we get to our true or false coming up as well. And yeah, no wonder Pena was the underdog by so much. I definitely agree. And you know what? We're going to get into it second, and we're going to get into it in just a second. I'm happy that you're here watching right now. But listen, when you're at the top, I was trying to explain to my friends back at we had a fight party. We always do for these big cards, and they say things like, my boy, I started cracking up. He was like, all I saw was that Nunes couldn't beat Pena. There's fans out there that talk like that. You got to beat the champ to be the champ. So did Amanda Nunes drag her out 5 rounds? I think she did, to embarrass her. Greatest of all time. Habib's in the run. GSP in the run. Conor McGregor in the run. But Anderson Silva, man, he is one of the best to ever do it. Fedor Emelianenko, one of the best to ever do it. But then you see guys like Johnny Walker. You see guys like Suga Sean O'Malley coming up. Paddy Pimblett, another great example, where you feel the excitement. Johnny Walker was the great example of this. They tried pushing him too far. Tai Tuivasa could be another great example of this. You don't become the GOAT by not finishing fights. Everyone forgets about Mighty Mouse as well. What about Mighty Mouse? Just because he was at such a low weight class, he's not considered one of the greatest of all time? You do have to understand that there's been thousands of fighters throughout the years. Now, it seems like at every UFC event, we see another record broken. And then all of a sudden, the next pay-per-view, another record broken. And those are the guys like Jim Miller, Cowboy Cerrone. We're talking about people who aren't even champions that could be considered greatest of all time. To me, it's a lot of it has to do with the story. John Jones coming up, such a young age, beating up all of my favorite fighters. I was devastated every time. Then the whole Rashad Evans, John Jones thing, where Rashad left the camp and they chose the younger up-and-comer. And says Nunes was healthier this time around. She did not have COVID this time around. I said Pena won first fight because Nunes was not herself. I am just pumped up, LOL, all by myself. That's what it is, and we just sitting back talking about greatest of all time. I would love to hear what you guys think, so make sure to tweet me at XEvilEddieX. It's not evil_echo anymore. It's at XEvilEddieX. Very simple. Who's your GOAT and what do you consider to be the GOAT? BJ Penn up in there for that talk as well back in the day. Now, how many times, let's talk about Kai Kara France here, because I feel like he kind of got screwed here, right? Kai Kara France, his first title fight. So how many times has a fighter lost their first title fight and then have been able to come back? DC, you put DC up there versus John Jones. Even GSP, 2 fights, and then he didn't even think he was going to be able to win against Matt Hughes. Glover Teixeira, the title fight versus John Jones back in 2014. Tito, and I'm not talking about Pride Tito, at UFC 22 in 1999 versus Frank Shamrock. And I really suggest you guys go back and watch that fight, because Shamrock was in a little bit of trouble in that fight. And man, Tito Ortiz, another name that you can throw up there as one of the greatest of all time. I mean, he was one of the guys that really built the sport. And if I got any Tito Ortiz fans out there, you got to watch the most hilarious video ever. And it was like a serious thing too. And he blames this on why his career went south. So there's this like ghost hunting show. It's called like Celebrity Ghost Stories or something like that, right? So Tito Ortiz is in one of the episodes, and he brings this lady back to the house where he was haunted. He's telling all these crazy stories, and they got like visions of him just losing his mind, flipping out, probably all fucked up on steroids, thinking that there's ghosts in the house. But he blames a ghost. This is true. He blames a ghost for his career going south. You gotta catch that. I'll try to figure that one out. Yeah, let's get back into talking about longevity when it comes to fighters. Sugar Sean O'Malley. You guys keep saying he's fighting cans. Paddy Pimblett. Oh, he's fighting nobodies. Guys, we waited how long for Paddy Pimblett to come into the UFC? He even had that interview on Ariel Helwani's show where we thought he was going to come in and say, listen, I signed. I did it. I'm in the UFC. No, he took his time. He took his time to get back in there. It's about longevity and mixed martial arts. Paddy Pimblett, what he was able to do all those years coming through before signing with the UFC. And once he did sign with the UFC, you have to take it slow. You can't run through all the way to the top like they tried to do with Johnny Walker. Tai Tuivasa is another example. And I'm just repeating this in case you didn't hear me because that music was way too loud. You get to the top and you're fighting in an all-star game every single time. Imagine the NFL, NHL, or the MLB having to be in the all-stars every single game. You have to be at the top of the top. You're supposed to take it slow. Once you reach a certain point in your career and you lose a couple fights, look at Derek Lewis right now in the position that he's in. What happens? You get knocked out, especially at heavyweight. They say you should retire. Ronda Rousey, another one. Oh, now she lost. She retired. 2 fights. You lost 2 fights and now you should retire after we were just calling you the greatest of all time just an hour ago? Just a couple months ago? It's about making smart decisions. When Ronda Rousey went in there against G.O.A.T and put on one hell of a performance, the hype was there. You let that hype ride as long as you can. You go on social media like Paddy does, or you make your own videos like Suga does. You have a stellar performance in there and you ride it out as long as you can. And you train your ass off and you don't jump to the highest level before you're ready for it. That's literally why they have junior varsity and varsity. Once you hit the top 15, and you can say what you will about the rankings, you have to keep rising and rising. And there's a lot of guys in the top 15 that have been there for years, and they go unnoticed, unthanked, and they're called, what do we always call them? Oh man, my mind's going blank. A gatekeeper. But then you can look at somebody like Michael Bisping. And Michael Bisping stuck in there, never gave up. The dude lost an eye, was able to get away with it. He never gave up. The story there. I remember him going up against Luke Rockhold. Everybody was betting against Michael Bisping. And what does he do? He goes in there and he finishes him. On 2 weeks' notice after shooting Triple X. And we're about to get into the UFC PICKEMs next. Just messaging Ann in the chat. And then you look at guys like, Chuck Liddell. He retired at the right time. Getting knocked out. Rumble Johnson. I think he could have stayed here. But it's devastating. Even DC cried when he lost against John Jones in the head kick. It's about longevity. It's not about rushing through this, because you have nothing left once you're done. Habib, another guy, took his time rising, and you can kind of argue against that, but the dude was unstoppable. He was absolutely unstoppable. It's so important right now. Right now, you're seeing fighters change up how they're even training with sparring. We heard stories of the old wars back in the gyms. That's gonna take a toll on you. It takes a toll on your body. Dominic Cruz, all the injuries he has, and he's still in here fighting. Longevity, but he's still relevant. He's been fighting at the top for so long. Do you guys realize how remarkable that is? John Jones, he has to be the GOAT. The longevity, well, here's the thunder. The longevity of John Jones' career to be up at the top, take away anything that he's done outside the octagon. He has to be the greatest of all time, even above Anderson Silva. I got John Jones, Anderson Silva. Those are my top 2. I want to hear your guys' top 2. Maybe next week we'll do the top 5. So next week, that will be one of the new segments. Let me know what you guys think about all of this and what it means to be in the UFC, because it's harder to get back into the UFC than it is to get in. And remember, if you didn't hear this part, guys, how many have lost their first title fight only to come back and win? DC's in there. GSP didn't think that he would win. Glover versus Jones 2014. Tito, not Pride Tito, the UFC 22 in 1999 versus Frank Shamrock. BJ Penn versus Gents, January 11, 2002. First lightweight to ever headline for the UFC. So coming up next, guys, we got some exciting really exciting segments coming for you. UFC Pick'em winners up next, followed by True or False, I believe. And then we got to talk a little evil eye of the week. So let's jump into that. UFC Pick'em winners from this weekend.
Since 1993, MMA fighters from all over the world have gone into battle, shedding blood, sweat and tears to prove that they are worthy of holding the title of champion. At every UFC event, as the fighters throw down in the octagon for our entertainment, each hoping to validate that they are the best by someday having a UFC belt strapped around their waist. A second competition rages amongst the pure evil army for the right to lay claim to the prestigious Crystal Skull belt, for ultimate pick'em bragging rights over their evil brothers and sisters in arms. And this week, after climbing their way to the top of the pure evil ranks, the prominent honours of the Crystal Skull are awarded to...
So I'm really happy to be bringing this back, and I'm really happy about this week's winner. We have no other than Anne the Knitter, but wait, Priscilla Mello. Since when did that pop up in there? That was not there before. Pretty sure Anne won this. This is a conspiracy right now. Priscilla Mello. I swear I did not see that before. This is like a different reality if you ask me. Because, I mean, for the picks, right, Anne got 13 and Priscilla got 13. Man, it's a tie. Basically, it's a tie. Came down to points. So next week is going to be the start of our Pure Evil MMA podcast Pick'em. It's going to be game number 1, week number 1. And I want to get a great following for this, because back in the day, man, I can't even tell you how much fun it was to sit there in the prelims. Every fight counted. And it wasn't about, oh, I'm in first place, I'm in second, I'm in 8th. It was about having fun with it. And I'm so thankful for Tapology to somewhat bring this back in a way. I honestly do enjoy the older version a lot better. It was way smoother, but this is a lot of fun, just a little difficult to add people. So congratulations to Anne and Priscilla. But next week we will be starting the official Pure Evil MMA podcast Pick'em. I will have the leaderboard behind me. It's actually over there, and the craziest thing is, where is it actually? I wish it was in sight. It literally still has, from like 2017, UFC Pure Evil MMA UFC Pick'em on it, with like the old winners and everything. I was absolutely blown away. I couldn't believe it. It's over there somewhere. I'm not going to interrupt the podcast once again, like this is some kind of a playground. But let's see what Anne has to say. I find it funny, now I feel silly. Anne replied, they still have the UFC Pick'em League, it's just different now. Ooh, I didn't know that. I didn't actually know that. Let me see if I can bring up the open chat room so you guys can actually see it. Let me pop this out. Pop out chat. So you guys can actually see it. And let's see here. We're gonna add browser. Sure. We're gonna add the browser in so you guys can see what's going on in the chat room. Let's see if this works. Come on, pop on in, baby. I know an even better idea. Oh, there it is. All right, here's our chat room right here. You know, I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out. All right, so Anne, I miss my cowboy, of course, and he has to be one of the people that should be considered one of the greatest of all time. But like in a different way. When people say the greatest of all time, I think of it as like the Mount Rushmore in a way. You know, like I think of it like there can only be 5. The greatest of all time, you're talking about of all time, like the God, like unstoppable, straight up, like Francis Ngannou laws, longevity, taking people out. Man, Cowboy's career for as long as he did it and as active as he was too. How many records he's broken. I mean, we're at UFC 277 already. Feels like yesterday was UFC 200. Feels like yesterday it was UFC 100. Who remembers UFC 100? All right, she's responding. They still have UFC PICKEM League. It's just different now. Oh, come on. I'm crying now. Don't cry, Ann. And we don't want you to cry here. Like that, right? That wasn't there. I sent everybody the photos. Like we must have switched dimensions or something like that. But that is actually really funny. I don't even know who Priscilla is. We got to get her in the chat room. So Priscilla, if you're watching this, make sure to follow me at EvilEddieX, and I'll add you to the chat room, or just tweet me. Yes, the old UFC Pick'em was better than the one they have now. It's way different now, the new UFC Pick'em League, but it's not as fun. Definitely send that over to me, please. For sure, send that over to me, because I really am desperate to find something similar to what we used to have back in the day. So congratulations to Ann and Priscilla. Next week, guys, if you think it's fair, that will be the starting week, week 1. I mean, because July 30th, right? So it's going to be the start of a new month. 4 events, if we have 4 events this month. I got to check with Marcel, but that's how we're going to do it. This was a good starting week. I'm not adding anybody in late. Whoever is in this week, that's it. There will be nobody else allowed. I think I limited it to about 15 people that can join. So I think you guys are getting a little look at Mike's freaking thing. Look, Pure Evil MMA. There's you in. We got Cole Hart, Drake Ain, Flip Units, K Flip, which he's from right here in Connecticut. We might do a fight companion together with his cousin Kissy, Milanicat, Mike Hill, Priscilla Malillo, Striker Scar, The Barbecue Pit, and Z Thompson. We only have a couple spaces left, so he's definitely in there. You got to make your picks for them to actually show up on stream, so or on the thing. So let's get into the next segment. Congratulations to Ann and Priscilla. All right, let's get into our evil eye of the, or you know what? You know what's next? Let's do a little true or false. What do you guys want to see? Some true or false? All right, guys. So we're going to be doing true or false at this point, and this is an old segment that I'm really happy to be bringing back to everybody. So, true or false? Question number 1: the UFC belt is made of real gold. True or false? And I'm going to give you a minute here. Let's try to figure it out. About 10 seconds. The answer to that is true. Well, kinda, because it's actually gold plated. So if you guys don't know what gold plated is, if somebody buys you a necklace, right, and you're like, oh my God, it's 14 karat plated gold, what it really means, what you're really getting is something that you can't bring to the pawn shop, that they really can't even melt down. So it's kind of a big bummer, if you ask me. All right, question number 2. I mean, these are some pretty easy questions. I'm just trying to level the music out for you. All right, at UFC 2, Steve Jenham, the Ninja Cop, won the title after winning just 2 fights. True or false? The answer for that is false. It was not UFC 2. It was UFC 3. Ken Shamrock could not continue at UFC 3 after an injury. And Steve Jenham, after only 2 fights, went in there and fought for the title. Question number 3, and let me just check. False. Make sure there's some freaking music here for you guys. All right, question number 3. UFC 37.5 was the very first MMA card on cable, which was Fox Sports Net, and Robbie Lawler was the first fight that aired. True or false? And the answer to that one is true. UFC 37.5 was headlined by Chuck Liddell versus Vitor Belfort, and your boy Robbie Lawler was there and was the very first fight at UFC 37.5, which is absolutely insane. Hopefully, guys, let me know if the music is a little bit too loud or if it's a little bit too low, because I don't want freaking radio silence here. And says T, that's my hubby's avatar, T. I will make my picks on Friday or Saturday last minute as usual. Hey, I'm always last minute. You know what? Like, this music sucks. Like, it's not fucking playing the song, so fuck the music. All right, question number 4. Matt Serra was the first American black belt under the Gracie family. True or false? And guys, remember to tweet me your answers at XEvilEddieX. The answer to that is true. He studied with Renzo Gracie. He was actually the first American black belt under the Gracie family. So that's kind of crazy. This next one really might blow you all away. It really might. So question number 5. Shogun Rua used to be a runway model and also starred in a Brazilian soap opera. True or false? So the answer to that is actually true. He was a male runway model in Brazil and also acted in a Portuguese soap opera. Shogun Rua. Shogun Rua. Hope you guys know what I'm talking about. Shogun Rua was a runway model. That's pretty crazy. And it makes you wonder, like, has anyone ever asked him about some stories? About back in the day, young Shogun Rua, like, how do you do that? Luke Rockhold, Elias Theodorou. I had Elias on the show and I was talking about this as well. I was like, dude, how are you managing this? Like, you're gonna show up with a black eye, you're gonna be bruised and this and that. He was like, nah, bro. He's like, I'm even on the cover of a couple of love books. It's like, what the hell? And he actually texted me the picture of it. I got to get Elias back on here, man. One of my favorite people to talk to. Great personality, and really sad that, you know, people didn't show him the love. I just feel like there's a lot of people that don't understand how difficult it is to be a fighter. The sacrifices you have to make. I can barely multitask 2 things. You know, the podcast, making my back. You know, you got fighters training, working jobs, doing this, doing podcasts, doing interviews, cutting weight, eating awful food, dipping their body in ice cold waters, still trying to stay up on their social media. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. All right, this is a bonus question. Let's see if you guys can get this one right. Theodore Roosevelt was into mixed martial arts. He wrestled, he boxed, and studied judo most of his life. He was also the first American to earn a brown belt. Is that true or false? And Ann, you're killing it. And is freaking killing it. She got everyone right. So it looks like you're going to be number one. What's your answer for this one? I'm going to repeat the question here. Theodore Roosevelt was into mixed martial arts. He wrestled, he boxed, and studied judo most of his life. And he was the very first American to earn a brown belt. True or false? The answer to that one is actually true. It's a true, go look it up. It's a true statement. So I hope you guys join me next week for some more true or false. Let's get into our next segment. So our evil eye of the week is going to Islam Makhachev after he said on Twitter 2 years ago, March 7th, 2020, 7:39 p.m. from his iPhone and his verified account, this is not a woman's sport. And when you hear that, it makes you sick to your stomach. You know, you try to understand different cultures, but why is this not a woman's sport? Look at just the two fights between Amanda and Juliana. You're going to tell me you didn't watch that night? You weren't excited? You didn't love watching Ronda Rousey go in there and see if she can finish somebody in less than the time it takes to film a Snapchat? When that music went on, when Ronda Rousey would walk out, you didn't get goosebumps? When Holly Holm knocked Ronda Rousey out, you didn't say, wow? When Amanda Nunes knocked out Chris Cyborg, you didn't say, wow? When Misha Tate choked out Holly Holm for the title, you didn't say, wow? Like, what do you mean? This is not a woman's sport. This sounds like something my fucking grandfather would say. And it really pisses me off because I come from a city. I come from a melting pot. There's all different races. You know, growing up as a kid, you know, I was really the only white kid in my neighborhood. I didn't know. My parents told me. This is something that is learned. This is not something that you decide, in my opinion. This is not a woman's sport? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, this is not a woman's sport. I understand there's a lot of fights for females that are not exciting, but there's also a lot of male fights that are goddamn awful. And when you're in the UFC and you see some records, you're like, oh, like, how is this girl signed? But then you see somebody like Jillian Robertson, who she doesn't have it anymore, who had a 100% finishing rate. Molly McCann, she beat Meatball Molly McCann on her debut. When Molly came over to the UFC, they put her up against Jillian Robertson. And Jillian was on that season of Ultimate Fighter with Justin Gaethje as her coach and Eddie Alvarez. And both Justin and Jillian learned something from that season. Justin learned just how important cardio is. You saw when they had the coach challenge, they had to do 5 laps back and forth. Justin versus Eddie, another person that you can consider greatest of all time. what happened? Justin gassed out, couldn't do it. Eddie Alvarez, his cardio was on point. Then they go in there against one another, one hell of a fight. And every punch thrown, you thought one guy was going to drop any second. And Eddie's eye was about to pop out of his head. And he had the cardio to continue. You can say it's not the cardio, that he just knocked him out. But Eddie Alvarez stuck in there, bit down like a rabid pit bull. And he had the tools he needed to win that fight. And it's crazy to see them not just fight together, but try to do 5-lap swimming versus one another. It kind of opened like a window. I would love to see fighters go head to head at other things, cardio involved, because it really does show where you're at. But at the same time, this is not a women's sport. Dana White said that on TMZ. There will never be women in the UFC ever. That's an embarrassing clip to have out there forever, to say that. I don't understand how that doesn't make everybody sick to their stomach. That is definitely evil eye of the week. And I love watching this guy fight. But there's some things that fighters say, and you just wonder why. You know, Conor really offended me when he was talking about Khabib's wife. He said, "You married a towel?" And I think he took that tweet down. But it's like, you what are you doing? You can't. What kind of like, are you saying that to hurt me? This is not a women's sport. You tweet that out and you think you're going to get a bunch of retweets and likes and build a whole new fandom. The only fans you're getting from that are people that are chewing lips and beating their wives in a wife beater watching NASCAR. Those are the people here in America that like those tweets. Our generation, I'm 33, I thought we were over racism. We're over, caring if somebody's gay or not. It just matters if somebody is happy. To put on a smile. You know, I go day to day depressed. I battle severe depression. And it's so difficult to put a smile on. But when I go out, I make sure not to bring anybody down. Hey, Eddie, I got to go. I'm going to watch the Contender series, which I will be watching in a little bit as well. And have a great night. I'm so happy that you came here for the UFC Pick'em segment. And make sure to make your picks and tell Mike to make his picks as well. And that's got to offend you. That's got to offend anybody. So let me know what you guys think about that at Evil Eddie X. All right, getting into the next segment here. We're going to our tweets of the week. All right, here, guys. Let's get right into things with our tweets of the week. We have bookmarked over here for you. So apparently, this was just tweeted out about an hour ago. Artem Lubov reveals that he came up with Proper 12 whiskey and gave it to Conor. Now, I'm kind of interested to see what people are saying about this, because that's what friends do. I have friends that tell me I should stop podcasting, that I'm not good at it. What'd this guy say? That's what friends do. Wish he was still in the UFC. I got to rewatch Ultimate Fighter season 22, because Artem on that season, Conor on that season, the buildup with Faber and TJ leaving the gym, man, it was crazy. I've been watching Tough 6. Okay. All right. GOAT. People are calling Artem a GOAT, and that's the greatest. GOAT. Damn, he messed up. Storm of McGregor tweets coming within the hour. Man, that's just what friends do. You help your friends out. Artem never has to fight again. Him and Conor. It's almost like the Fertittas and Dana. All right, Jetty Goodman. Updated UFC women's featherweight rankings. Lots of opponents for the champ to pick from. She's the only one in there. Really would have loved to see the Jermaine Durandamine fight up against Cyborg, honestly. So that's the only reason they opened that up. And then I tweeted my boy Mac Malley. Juliana Pena after getting dropped 19 times. I don't hear and new yet. Picture of Stan Marsh. That's a good one, man. That's definitely tweet of the week right there. Easily. And I'm going to retweet that right now for you guys. Because if you're not following my boy Mac Malley, definitely go give him a follow. Next week, I'm coming up with a segment, Drop and Follow. We're going to pick one person that if you're following, that is just an idiot, to drop them, and somebody that actually is interesting to follow. Now, here's Dana White still considering John Jones the GOAT, who says it's time to start talking about Kamaru Usman. That's one that really gets to me. Let's try to take a listen here.
I know that we have Amanda Nunes. She's the greatest female of all time, but where do you consider amongst all fighters in that conversation for the GOAT?
All fighters?
All fighters, male and female.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you asked me that question, actually. You know, I still consider John Jones. It's time to start talking about Kamaru Usman, you know?
And I can't wait to hear what he says next. I have not watched this clip yet. And I can't wait to see. I feel like people get caught up. We see this at the end of the year shows all the time, where best fight of the year usually was in the last 3 months, you know, one of the top 3, because it's so fresh in our minds. But we forget so many fights, so many amazing moments that have happened. Kamaru Usman has not had like a real enemy uprising. I mean, you could say the Colby Covington thing. You could throw that in there. Or Jorge Masvidal. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not, definitely not even in the top 15 for greatest of all time. He's been doing it for a minute now. But if you asked me 5 years ago, 4 years ago, if I would ever hear Kamaru Usman be considered the greatest of all time or even become champion, like when him and Woodley fought, I did not think Usman was going to win. Him and the Kobe fight, that first fight, wow. That came down too. But if he had more fights like that, okay. You can throw in the Masvidal thing. Okay. All right. But Mighty Mouse wasn't that long ago. And you guys forget about him. He beat everybody. Except for Uncle Creepy, who I still believe won. Let's see what Dana has to say in the rest of this.
He's one fight away from tying Anderson Silva. He already beat John Jones and GSP.
So when you say that, you have to look at the opponents that he has fought. He is one fight away from Anderson Silva. He's already passed John Jones. But John Jones was literally fighting legends, taking out guys that if I saw across the octagon would put fear in my soul. He almost had his arm snapped in half. He has one loss for DQ against Matt Hamill with a legal elbow, 12-6. Let's hear what he has to say. I mean, and also Anderson Silva, the way he was beating his opponents and the energy that he had, it was like watching Muhammad Ali. I remember his debut against Chris. The rise that Anderson Silva had. The only thing you would take away from Anderson Silva is the Damian Maia fight, where Dana actually walked out, wouldn't put the title on Anderson Silva. And everything came crashing down once he fought Chris Weidman. Once he broke that leg, I'll never forget that moment. We were all watching at Buffalo Wild Wings, and I forget where I was actually watching it, but watching that leg break, man, like, you think the Conor leg break was bad? If you're new to mixed martial arts, go watch Anderson Silva get his leg broken in half in the rematch fight against Chris Weidman. And even still, look at Anderson Silva's entire career. Even still, He took that short notice fight against DC at UFC 200. And he didn't look that bad. In fact, he almost finished DC, if you guys forget, because he was grabbing his belly. Anderson Silva, if he had a couple more minutes, man, even though that doesn't matter, and he still lost the fight on 2 weeks' notice. Imagine being DC and being like, well, you know, John's out, but Anderson, and what a big feather in the cap for DC, beating Anderson Silva, but only with 2 weeks' notice. You're having guys make a name. That was really when the fall started. You know, even the Bisping versus Anderson Silva fight on UFC Fight Pass. Anderson Silva got robbed. Absolutely robbed in that fight. Bisping won, and that boosted Bisping's career and changed his entire life from that moment on his birthday, or a day away from his birthday at the O2. Changed his entire life. A win over Anderson Silva, do you know what that meant back then? Do you have any idea what that meant? He was somebody that couldn't be touched. You could listen to fighters talk about having to fight him. Forrest Griffin going, bro, I had no idea where these punches were coming from. They were so fast. I've never seen anything like it. I believe that was the fight Forrest actually left the octagon. One of the times. And one time he actually, Forrest left the octagon, and I think he actually won the fight, like by decision, if I remember correctly. But when you beat somebody and it means that much, that's GOAT. That's GOAT. I wish they did a rematch, though. I really wish they did a rematch in that fight, because Anderson Silva was pushing him back against the cage, has no mouthpiece in there, throws the flying knee as Bisping is looking over there, pointing at his mouth guard, knowing he's in a lot of trouble right now. There's a lot of rumors that fighters do that. Nothing new. Anderson thinks he won the fight, jumps on top of the octagon, huge adrenaline dump. Herb tells him, nope, fight's still on. Could you imagine that? What that does to your mind, what that does to your psyche. And loses the fight, then loses UFC 200. Then things just crumble, man. Things just crumble. But he did it for so long. And every time he stepped in there, you didn't know what to expect. That was exciting. When I hear Kamaru Usman's fighting, I'm not like, I have to tune in for this. Something crazy is going to happen. He's been practicing something. He has something up his sleeve. He doesn't bring that. Nobody knows Kamaru Usman if you're not following the UFC. And you're going to call him the greatest of all time. Jake Paul made a great point. When Jake Paul and Dana White were going at it, Jake made this video in response to Dana talking about, you say your greatest pay-per-view fighter, Jorge Masvidal, and you look at his Instagram, and my mom has more Instagram followers than him. That's a big slap in the face to Dana. I love this thing going on back and forth with Dana and Jake Paul, but yeah, how are you considering Kamaru Usman one of the best just because he's like, hold on here.
I know that we have Amanda Nunes.
Consider John Jones, it's time to start talking about Kamaru Usman. You know, he's one fight away from tying Anderson Silva. He already beat John Jones. And
what this shows me is that they're not getting the reaction they expected when Kamaru Usman became champ. He's not a TJ Dillashaw. He's not a Conor McGregor. He's not an Anderson Silva. This shows me that he's trying to do some publicity for Usman. That's what that shows me.
And GSP. And now he's in his next fight, if he beats Leon Edwards, he ties Anderson Silva. So, yeah, he's in the discussion.
Once again, I was telling you guys, you got to look at it as if MMA has evolved, because it has evolved. When I was a kid growing up, taking karate, that's like all we had. And taekwondo. Now there's actually mixed martial art gyms where you have young kids learning everything. And it becomes muscle memory. It all becomes muscle memory. This is a publicity stunt. Let's see.
I know that we have Amanda Nunes.
Consider John Jones. It's time to start talking about Kamaru Usman. You know, he's one fight away from tying Anderson Silva. He already beat John Jones and GSP, and now he's in his next fight. If he beats Leon Edwards, he ties Anderson Silva. So, yeah, he's in the discussion.
I know that we have Amanda Nunes. She's the greatest female.
What do you guys think about that? Kamaru Usman, greatest of all time? Tweet me at X Evil Eddie X and let me know what you think about that, because he is way off the radar for me, and I know there's a lot of Kamaru Usman fans out there. Matter of fact, I'm trying to have Mohammed back on the show. I remember there was a time when Kamaru Usman got booed because he said, if you guys like that, that was only 30%. And people were saying, 30%? You went in there and you only showed 30%? Why not 100%? And it was like this big thing. Everyone was getting so over dramatic, like it was an episode on a soap opera, and like it was absolutely out of control. But for a little while, Kamaru Usman was like hated for saying that statement. And right after, I had Mohammed Usman on to discuss that, and that's right here on the YouTube channel that you guys can go check out as well. But man, not my GOAT. Like, not my president, not my GOAT. This is what I should get. Which trilogy do you want to see, says MMA Junkie? Do you want to see Amanda Nunes fight Pena again, or Valentina Shevchenko? Well, it's kind of a weird case now. Shevchenko has lost twice, but she also sent out that tweet saying, oh, I see Amanda has taken my stand-up game from me, which I was just like, Valentina throwing some shade. She wants some more. That's what you got to do. But does that hype you up after 2 losses against Amanda? And like I said earlier, that first fight that those two had, Shevchenko, I had her 2 rounds. She could have won the third. Or wait, whoa. What did I have? I think it was just a 3-round fight. What am I talking about? I think I had her for 2 rounds. Yeah. I think I had her for 2 rounds. A lot of people had her for 2 rounds thinking that she would beat Amanda, and she wasn't able to, so they did the rematch a couple years later. Pena versus Shevchenko, that was a great fight. If you guys don't remember, Juliana versus Shevchenko, Pena put Valentina in a lot of trouble. Had her on the ground, and we saw it with Amanda. She was doing it to Pena. She was like, you know what? If you're going to try to submit me, I'm going to take this to the ground. Bring it to your court, and I'm going to dunk on you. And every time she was trying to do a Kimura or an arm bar, she just couldn't get it. That's got to be so frustrating. It was like when John Jones took down DC. He wanted to take down DC and did it. First man to ever do it. But Pena almost beat Shevchenko. Shevchenko was able to come back and win that fight. Amazing fight. I say you do. What do you do? Let's see what people are saying here on this thread. Actually, let's click this thread because it's an interesting one. You ask me. So we got some tweets here. None don't want to see Amanda Nunes main or co-main events for a while, and I understand that because, like I said at the beginning, she kind of CM punked her. She dragged her out into the deep end, and we don't want to see that. We want to see a finish. But she embarrassed, absolutely embarrassed Juliana. I mean, that scorecard, what do you say about that? What do you say about the judges scoring that? What was it, 50-43 or something? That's unheard of. 50-43. Happened 3 times in history. That was the third. GSP versus Fitch, and Habib versus Ali Aquinta. And I believe Ali Aquinta took that fight on short notice. I was there. I actually saw Ariel Helwani in the Starbucks at one moment, and I actually had a crowd around me because I was doing a live podcast at the Starbucks that was attached to the Barclays Center. Let me see what everyone else is saying. Nunes for Valentina to settle this, although I think it has to change when updated since Nunes is 2-0 over her. I agree. Ooh, women's pound for pound. I see what he's saying here. So if you guys are listening to audio, there's a photo for the UFC pound for pound women's. Number 1 is Valentina Shevchenko. Number 2, Amanda Nunes. That's pretty insane. That's actually really insane. I would put Amanda number 1. Valentina's my girl, but my boy Maximum Power. Been settled for years. Twice. Agree. We're going to retweet that. Make sure to go follow Maximum. Marcel. All right. So this is the last one I'm going to read. We actually just had Marcel on the podcast a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now. Marcel Dorff replying to MMA junkie Shevchenko. If Pena wins 1 or 2 more and Nunes is still champ, for sure make the 3rd one. It's 1-1 between them, so that fight can also happen in 2 years. Of course, if Nunes hasn't retired by then. That's genius. Couldn't have said that better myself. I want to see Pena versus Nunes 3. That's exactly what needs to go down. Not Valentina. Valentina needs to stay where she's at. Do her thing. Let Valentina do her thing. You do the rematch. It's 1-1 now. And I think it's fair. If the UFC doesn't do that, that's a dirty move. It's almost like having Conor fight Nate. Nate wins and they do the immediate rematch. Now it's 1-1, but now we forgot about it all because we want Conor to be on top. Just like they got rid of Cyborg right after that. And that could do with the video that was shot and edited that Dana did not enjoy one bit. But Cyborg, once she was beat, it was like that's all they wanted from her. To prove that Amanda Nunes was the best. That the UFC has the best in the world. But then you look at their website and they got the pound for pound for Amanda Nunes. But Marcel's right. I want to see the 3rd fight. Amanda versus Pena. Because Amanda looked terrible in the first fight. The second fight, I think Juliana had a no mas moment. And for the fight fans out there that knows no mas, I feel like she won the title, went out there, partied her ass off, ate whatever she wanted, felt on top of the world. Because remember, this is what they dedicated their entire lives for. And you finally make it. You finally win the strap. I remember when Amanda Nunes won the strap. She slept with it in her bed that night. She was so happy. Pena should have taken a little longer, I believe. And I might get yelled at for that. Juliana should have taken a little longer. But now it's 1-1. And that was a no mas moment for me. Bring me that 3rd fight. So, with that being said, let me know what you guys think. Getting back, the early call was Derek Lewis versus Pavlovich stopped too early, says MMA Fighting. Because Derek Lewis, and I put this in the slideshow for everybody, Francis Ngannou even said that's definitely an early stoppage. DC, this was a bad stoppage. And you know, you trust Dan. Here, yeah, look at the first comment. Dan is, in my opinion, top 3 ref in the game, but that's a bad stoppage. Now, there's other photos out here, and I believe they're actually on my bookmarks of, hold on, don't want to ruin anything, but this Herb Dean thing. You know this is going through their mind at all times. All times. The photo says, what are you waiting for? Punch him one more time to make sure he dead. Bro, it's like sometimes they let it ride, like Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman. And sometimes you get dropped. And don't take me wrong here. Derek Lewis was rocked. He was in a bad place. He was in a very bad place. But he was also able to recover. He was getting up. Give him a chance. That was a huge loss for Derek Lewis there. That happened so fast. When it went down, I was like, Pavlovich had the perfect game plan. Went in there and just didn't pick him apart. Just pummeled him, which was very dangerous. Very dangerous game plan. And I think it took Derek Lewis off guard. He was not expecting him to come out like Verdun versus Travis Brown, basically, or Conor McGregor. Came out pretty hard, pretty fast. My opinion, that easily an early stoppage. Let's see what people online had to say about this as well. Agreed, he's top tier, but definitely messed that one up. And guys, it happens. You got to worry. When it comes to heavyweight, you have to worry about the longevity of their career. Can he take a couple more punches? He was just knocked out against Tai Tuivasa. I clearly see him with his eyes basically rolling back. I've interviewed plenty of MMA refs. Bobby Wambacher, who was just doing Invicta. In that conversation, I was discussing it. There's certain things that you see and notice as a ref over the years, but it's very difficult. Like, as an EMT, if I go to a scene and somebody's overdosing, it's not going to be the same treatment every time. He might need 2 or 3 more Narcans to wake up. He might need more air supply than the last one. But when you get knocked out at this level and you drop and wake back up, that's what I saw. I saw Derek Lewis get rocked, but wake right back up. Like he was just kind of surprised. He was shocked. That was not a knockout or TKO. I feel like that was definitely an early stoppage. And when you see people like DC and Francis saying it, that means something. But Derek Lewis is such a nice guy that he would really take it to heart. Now he's on a 2-fight losing streak at the top of the division. Like I was saying before, longevity is the most important part. Once you make it to the top 5, it's the All-Star game. You're in the All-Star game every freaking time. Mikey Nice Hands replies, yes. He popped right up. It probably ends within 10 seconds after the stoppage, but you never know. Early stoppage, period. And that's what I wanted to see, because Derek Lewis was getting up. But once the fight's called, it's called. Another interesting fact that Bobby Wambacher brought up, and this, you can bring this back up to the Jermaine Durandamine versus Holly Holm fight. I should have put this on true or false, actually. Do you know that the fight isn't officially stopped? The round is not stopped until the ref stops it and gets in between them. It's not the bell. It's not the clappers. Right after the referee stepped in, and all adversity was halted, it was over. So a lot of you guys seem to think the same thing, which, yeah, man, but you got to feel bad. You got to feel so bad for Derek Lewis, 2-fight losing streak. The fight with Francis, like, do we ever really want to see that fight ever happen again? Just getting knocked out twice now. Twice. Or was it too soon for him to come back? When somebody gets knocked out, I believe 6 months. You should definitely take 6 months off. Which worries me about Justin Gaethje's nose. When you get surgery on something, you need it to heal up correctly. Now, I don't know what kind of surgery Justin had, but he was waiting for it. 2 years ago, he did an interview with, I believe, MMA Junkie. And he was saying, you know, I've been waiting 15 years to finally get surgery on my nose and be able to breathe and talk. So I'm kind of excited to see how Justin Gaethje is going to be able to talk now and see what it does for him. My little brother had a deviated septum when I was growing up, and he'd always make these crazy noises. It was like, I can't even do it. Like, I'm sorry if you're listening on your car's radio right now, but you got to think. You're getting surgery on your nose. You want it to be broken in a fight. How has he not had his nose broken yet in all these wars? Because the UFC would pay for it. So he ended up having to do it himself. Surgery went A-okay. But my question to you is, and I believe Kaposa responded to this one. When a fighter gets surgery on their nose, their chin ends up going with it. You need to be able to heal properly. Remember, ear, nose, and throat. It's all connected. Ear, nose, and throat. That's why you go to ear, nose, and throat doctor. I got my EMT book over here. It's all connected. When you get a sore throat, you get a runny nose, you get a headache, ear, nose, and throat, earaches, all connected. You're getting surgery on your nose. You better not be in that gym. And it's up to the coaches as well, I believe. The coaches should not allow him to do anything. You need to relax. I believe it's 6 months. I wrote it in my notes somewhere. It's 6 months without fighting or training at all. Now, if you're training your whole life and you're at the spot you're at in the UFC, don't rush back in, man. Take it easy. You're in a good spot. We don't care if Justin Gaethje ever becomes a champ, right? I don't care if he never fights for the title. I'm excited every time he steps in there. That's what a champion is to me. It's not the belt. It's about showing up, and every time you step in there, you put on a performance that everyone remembers. And that's something that Michael Chandler recently said. Something like that. He said, people aren't going to remember me for this or that. They're going to remember me for how I made them feel, which is true. It's true about everything. If you go over to your friend's house, they got a new dog and it bites you, you're not going to want to go back over there because you're going to remember that dog bit me. And if you make your UFC debut and you get knocked out quickly, people are going to remember that. They're not going to be excited. They're going to remember you for how you made them feel. Israel Adesanya, a good example with his walkouts. When I was looking at the tweets, when Israel Adesanya was making his walkout, people were going nuts saying, this doesn't feel real. That's what you got to make people feel. Bringing Figgy into the octagon. People aren't going to forget about that. You can't have Figgy cage side and not bring them in. When Marino, this kid right here on my screen, if you're listening to the audio podcast, once again, go over to YouTube because you're missing out on some of this stuff. The Pride of Mexico. It's like him in his junior prom tuxedo. It actually looks pretty sharp. All right, another tweet. Just Bleed MMA. OG. Sure, Pena may have been a little annoying and cringe on the mic and in interviews. So she may have made ignorant, negative comments about Amanda Nunes' motherhood. Yeah, she was destroyed in the immediate rematch, but at the end of the day, I forget my point. That's a good one, man. That's a good one for Just Bleed MMA. Love these old school face-offs in the cage after a fight, says Jetty. But a lot of people are complaining. A lot of people are complaining that this should have been a DC Lesnar moment. Lesnar steps in the octagon, pushes DC 30 feet away, and Rosendo Sanchez kicks freaking Brock Lesnar. Rosendo Sanchez is like 5'8" or something like that. Or no, 5'8". He's like 5'4". I've had him on the podcast before. He's a great guy. When I saw him do that, I lost my shit. That was one funny moment. DC gets pushed and 30 feet. 30 feet away. I absolutely couldn't believe what I witnessed. I thought it was going to be another moment like that because that's how you hype it up. And this is what makes me a little nervous. When you see two guys go in there and they have a rivalry brewing and you just knocked out your opponent, you just finished your opponent, and for the interim title, you're doing Nate Diaz. But in this moment, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. Just like the Joker said. The Joker needs Batman. Conor needed Jose Aldo. Chuck Liddell needed Tito Ortiz. You got what I'm saying here? Uriah Faber needed Dominic Cruz. But now you see them step in there and they hug it out. That's not gonna hype anybody up. That's not the promo they wanted. They wanted a John Jones promo where John Jones goes in there, head kicks DC, and says, Brock Lesnar, where you at? We want something like that. But no. And it makes me worry because when the anger and the eye of the tiger goes away and it just becomes a thing, we don't want to see two friends fight. We don't want to see them hug it out. But at the same time, I'll rebuttal with this. They did that only because Marino needed to win for both of their careers to thrive, to push forward with the excitement that the UFC needs. Like they need from Usman. Like they need from all their champions. They don't need their champions complaining about how much money they're getting made. They need stories. This is a beautiful story. But we need something in between this. Because if they show up, what made the first fight so special? What made the second fight special? You know, you had Marino to root for, and you had Figgy as the bad guy, and he plays the role man. You know, life is just a stage. All the world's a stage. This is what they chose to do. And as a fan, I don't like it. As a human, I respect it. Because that's what needed to happen. When we had, oh man, what's her name? Girl from World Series of Fighting, PFL. Oh man, why can't I remember her name right now? When we had her cage side for the Amanda Nunes fight, what was supposed to happen was she was supposed to walk in, face off against Amanda, because she was a free agent. Why am I forgetting her name? I've even been at her fights and backstage with her. Losing my mind. But it's like the craziest name to forget too. But yeah, that's what they were trying to do there. This was a moment. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it or what you think about it and if you want to see it. All right, getting on to Anthony Smith, broken leg. Dana said there was no fracture and Smith took a capital L. Let's play this video clip for you guys here.
Was there an update on Anthony Smith? He hurt his leg in the fight.
Yeah, did anybody? Yeah. No fracture.
Was there an update on Anthony Smith? He hurt his leg.
No fracture. But I was just told, and I retweeted it on my page, that he actually had surgery on his leg. That he had a broken ankle. So that's actually false. It's actually very false. MMA Junkie / USA Today just reported that Anthony Smith to have surgery after breaking ankle in UFC 277 loss. Man, how are you going to yell at somebody for thinking that they broke their leg, especially somebody like Anthony Smith, who's been around forever? What do we do when we're children? What do we do now when, you fall off a ladder, for instance, or you stub your toe? You're like, I think I broke my toe. I think my leg's broken. That's the immediate thing you think of. The immediate thing you think of is it's broken. You can't put that on him. He's not a doctor. He just knows he's in a shit ton of pain right now. So for Dana White to use that against him, I mean, is he using it against him? Let's listen again.
Was there an update on Anthony Smith? He hurt his leg in the fight.
Yeah, did anybody? Yeah. No fracture.
No fracture. But he broke his ankle? That's like who's the lady saying that? He broke his ankle. That's way more than a fracture. A fracture is a split hair. Breaking your ankle is huge, especially in MMA. It's not good. At one point, Anthony Lionheart Smith was rising to the top, another like Michael Bisping in a way, where he's been around forever. And you never think he's going to make it to the top. He gets there, and it was just a sad fight. All right, let's get down. Derek Brunson tweets, "The only doctor I'm taking advice from is Dr. Rogan. If he says the leg's broke, the leg's broke." Amanda Nunes thought that Valentina's message was funny because Valentina sent out a message saying, "Looks like Amanda decided to fully copy my stand-up game." Let's hear what she had to say here.
I don't know if you saw her tweet or not, but she did say that you essentially stole her whole style in the stand-up game tonight. So
that's funny. She have to put out there something to stand out, because right now, as a champion, Valentina, she lost her last fight, you know. So I really think if Tyler don't got those headbutt, that fight could be way different.
I don't know if you...
So yeah, I don't want to see the Valentina Shevchenko trilogy. After Valentina lost twice, you could say that's not the same Valentina. I want to see the rematch for Pena. She didn't finish her, right? Like my boy said. All I saw was she couldn't finish the champ. But like I said, I think she's CM Punk'd her and could have finished her at any moment. I brought this up earlier. This was from Dovey SIMU MMA. Only 3 times a 50-43 scorecard has been seen in the UFC title fight. GSP versus John Fish, Habib Alaquinta, and now Amanda versus Pena. What else do we got here? Here's the moment where Figgy steps in with Marina.
I don't hate you. I don't feel nothing against you. I forgive you, and please forgive me if I did something bad against you, brother.
So he's also playing like the good guy here, right? He's playing, hey, I'm the good guy. Did I do something wrong to you? Bro, this is MMA. You just won the interim title. So now you have to fight the champ. What do you mean?
Hey, don't be confused. I want to fight. I want to fight against you in December. You said you're fine. I'm perfect. I just have the coup. Let's go in December, all right?
Davison, what is your thought on this?
Esse cara, a gente vai apresentar grande show para vocês, pode ter certeza.
So, in that moment, I know it was big, but it takes so much away. I don't want to repeat myself, but let me know what you guys thought about this. Also, Yair Rodriguez absolutely losing his mind with Brandon Moreno's win. Yo, Yair Rodriguez, another great one. Thomas Almeida, man, he could have been one of the best. Thomas Almeida, telling you, another guy pushed too hard. Once you get that L, things seem to really change. Now, UFC ESPN tweets out, the 2-time double champ made history last night at UFC 277. Title fight aficionados. Amanda Nunes is the 5th fighter in UFC history and first female to win at least 10 title fights. John Jones with 14, GSP with 13, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson with 12, Anderson Silva with 11, and Amanda Nunes. Like I keep saying, gotta look at the opponents. I mean, there's a lot of math that goes into it. Mac Malley. Look at Marino standing here. My boys, the MMA holes, next to Francis, man. Meatball Molly out. The fights last week were also awesome. Paddy Pimlet backstage watching it. Guys, this year has been awesome. This year has been absolutely insane. All the fights that we've been getting, we've been spoiled. I haven't said that in so long. We've finally been spoiled once again. And I recently just saw MVP versus Mike Perry or BKFC like 27. Like it's so crazy how that became a thing. I remember when BKFC came out and we didn't know how long it was going to last. We had all these old timers signing with them, which we wanted to see fight, but bro, they're on their 27th event or something like that. The one bare knuckle promotion that just disappeared was Ken Shamrock's. And I loved everything about Ken Shamrock's bare knuckle organization, and it just freaking disappeared. So if you guys know what the hell happened to that, let me know. If there's anything else that I missed, we'll get to next week. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, the true or false. Make sure you guys tweet me on my new Twitter at XEvilEddieX. And remember, without evil, there's no purity. White knuckles till the end. Behave yourselves.